do a lot of hiring in all the roles I've had, having teams, and again, it's a little bit more in the sales side, but one of the big things I look at is people with various backgrounds and diverse like degrees and different roles that they've done. So I don't just go, hey, is that person specifically sales? So it should let you know that you could go into any role, doesn't mean you have to have that experience in the role. What we're typically looking for is specifically the competencies to see if you can do that role. So I look to see, hey, what are those things that you've done? You could be, I'll give you an example, some of my best salespeople were people that were either teachers, people that ran gyms and fitness centers, and then obviously, typical people that have done sales in some sort of fashion marketing. A lot of people don't realize when you look at sales and are hiring, it doesn't necessarily mean it's just sales. It could be a marketing, a brand ambassador, somebody that's on social media doing social media managing, because almost everything ties to sales. So I look for people's experiences that show me competencies that they would have for the role I'm looking for. Other ones, learning mindsets kind of ties with coachable, but do they continuously learn? Are they taking additional courses? Are they constantly reading books and things like that that are helping them just be smarter and better, etc.? And then another one is just work ethic, right? And you can see through a resume, like people work ethic, or when you're in an interview, you're sharing like your history. What did you do during college? What did you do during high school? Are you in other activities? And just like your work ethic in general is something that we're looking for.
A little bit further, how on a resume you could articulate coachability and the ability to continue learning. How do you articulate that in a few bullet points?
Yeah, one easy way is if you have done any type of sports, and not only just sports, it could be the arts too. My middle daughter is in theater, but she has to take direction. She has to do, work with the director, etc. So it could be music, it could be arts, etc. The reason is you're doing something that you're probably trying to master your craft, and that needs coachability. So that's the kind of stuff you want to show outside of just, hey, yeah, this is where I go to school, or here's a part-time job I've had, but here's also the activities that I do that could show, hey, that person is probably coachable. And I would think sports, drama, arts, music, etc. like that could show.
How would you advise people to answer the "tell me about yourself" question in an interview?
Yeah, and apologize, I'll jump in. And yesterday, Quincy was here and James that was here a second ago. I actually shared when I have an upcoming interview that I'm going into a job, before my face-to-face. So I've gone through the screening, they've seen my resume, and they've set up a first interview, and maybe a couple first interviews that I'm gonna meet some people. Before I actually meet them, I actually put together a video where I'm going over my resume, and I use like tools like Vidyard and stuff, so I'll be in the corner and I'll walk through my resume. I do this, and again, this is to separate yourself from all the people that are applying. I do this so they can actually get to know me before I even meet them. So then when we're meeting, they don't have to ask me, tell me about yourself. We can get into like, let's talk about how it can actually help you in this job, or they can talk to me about specific things they heard in that video. It really helps skip that 5 to 10 minutes of me just walking through my background. And if they want to know more, that's great. If they didn't watch the video, that's fine, but I intentionally do that so I can try to bypass that quick question. Same thing when I'm asking people, it's usually the same thing. If they did that for me, I would ask them deeper interview questions, but usually I have to go, tell me a little bit about your background, and I have to hear their background. But I'm just giving that tip, that when I go for interviews, I always create a video sharing my resume, and I send that off to that person I'm gonna have an interview with, usually a day or 2 days before, so they could see it and have time to watch it before that.
Nowadays, people use social media. How would you interact social media into, in your job search? If you are trying to, look for a job, because people, tend to use LinkedIn to build their network, and also follow posts of other people that are on LinkedIn. So what are some recommendations there?
I mean, for social media, LinkedIn would be the premier platform to use for your career. But if you're using other social media, it really depends on what your audience is. If you're trying to get into a creative space that is maybe more arts and stuff like that, and you want to use social media like Instagram or TikTok to show your platform or portfolio, then that makes sense. But if you're not, personally, when I do even resumes or interviews, I do look at the social media. I want to see, one is, if it's public or private. That does tell a lot about a certain person. Being private is not a bad thing. Being public is not a bad thing. It just gives a indicator of something that could potentially help them on making a decision. Then if it is public, what is that? That's on the post. If it's a lot of positive stuff, again, I have 3 daughters. My older daughter posts a lot about just her like manifesting good things and all these positive vibes. Well, like an employer sees that, it's like, wow, that's a real positive person, that's fine. And if it was private, that would be perfectly fine too. But think about like if you're using social media, companies are looking at it. I actually shared this statistic recently. 70% of a career builder says 70% of employers look at a person's social media when they're in that interview process. So it's something that's keen on. LinkedIn is the easy one to obviously use because the professionals are looking at your LinkedIn, and it's usually just your digital resume. And then what you do on LinkedIn, or who you're connected to, and what you're doing is going to help you continuously grow. What I love is you ask questions, but don't ask questions that anybody could just Google and like you could find the answer without it. Instead, you almost position it where I was on your website, I noticed you guys do this, this, this. I'm actually curious, how does that impact this? And you're showing that you did the research, that you are like an independent thinker and intellectual, and like now asking a deeper question that you couldn't get the answer from the website, and now they get engaged with you and are like, wow, they did the research, that's a good question. This person is somebody that I kind of want to continue talking to through the process.
A little bit in terms of that it's important to do your homework on a company so you can ask some more intelligent questions in an interview. Do you have advice on what types of things you should be looking for and following up on when you're doing that research ahead of time?
Yeah, I think it depends on like what type of job you're looking for, but that's kind of that ties to that learning mindset and coachability concept. Like you're doing work, you're preparing, and that research and preparation is a competency that people want in any role, right? That you actually do research, you're preparing before whatever the work is. So I think, you know, depending on the type of role, you're gonna research. If it's a publicly traded company, yeah, like May mentioned, like knowing positive news and negative news, because you could literally turn that into, listen, I saw recently in an article that said this. I'm actually curious, are you worried about the upcoming quarter or year for your company based on what I just read? What you just showed is not only that you did the research, that you understand those impacts, and that you're asking a thoughtful question. So that, again, for that role or that company, that might make sense. Maybe it's a small business that doesn't have big articles like that. Well, you could be industry relevant. So your research could be, hey, I know in this industry, let's just say manufacturing, and you're a small business that's going in manufacturing right now, there's a decline in this, or there's a positive impact because of government contracts or something like that. How are you guys going to use this to help your, you know, overall revenue and growth? You're again tying back to the research you did, showcasing that you understand the impacts of that organization, and you're asking a very thoughtful question. So it all depends on what you end up doing. But again, for any type of role, there's thoughtful questions that you can do based on research you do or just on their website. Another great one, I apologize, I'm hogging now. Another one is like if you read a little bit about their about me and how they get started, right? I never go like, oh, tell me about how you got started in the business, because usually all of that's on their website anyway. So I rather read that, know how they got started on their website, or if you are interviewing something, reading about their background, well, I can see all that on LinkedIn and stuff. So I'm going to use that and then ask more of a thoughtful question on like, hey, I know you guys got started like this. Tell me what the next 5-year trajectory is, and then if there's an opportunity for growth for myself in that 5 years, right? You're showing commitment, you're showing thoughtfulness, you're showing research.
Around people asking about the non-technical side, so like the culture of the people, or I know it's not work-life balance, but maybe I'm assuming what would be a good way to approach getting an idea of what is my life, my life.
No, that's actually a really good thing to ask. Again, maybe not like work-life balance coming off, like I'm thinking about hours work, but you should talk about like, hey, I'd love to hear a little bit about like how you manage, how does the team look, how does the organization like do, like what kinds of culture do you activities do you guys have? And sometimes it's about understanding, do they have employee resource groups, so that way you know there's like clubs within the company, or you know, what are your like volunteer things that your company does, and any nonprofit work that the company does outside. And these are kind of good questions to just understand what else more is it about the culture. Another big one is I ask, because I can see some stuff on LinkedIn, but I don't usually know their org structure. So I kind of want to ask, like, tell me a little bit about the org structure, what your team looks like, and how it falls into the company. Because that's internal information, but that's also understanding, like, hey, how big is a team? How does it look? Who would be on my team? And so I'm asking questions about org structure that I can't uncover just on LinkedIn. One on what you said, and one quickly on yours. Practice makes perfect. So even when you haven't done all these interviews, role playing. Even in my sales world, we talk about role playing in practice. It's a concept. Same thing with athletes and stuff. We're practicing so that way when the time is right, you've done everything so that way you can have that opportunity and you be really well in. So the more you role play and practice, get with someone. Nowadays, you can actually role play with like an AI simulator, tell them like what you want to do. There's like ChatGPT function, and they'll actually role play like that hiring manager. I want to role play with a hiring manager that's focused in this industry with this much experience, and you could actually find these kinds of tools. But practice makes perfect on the interview process. And then to your point, you're talking to a lot of different people. So you have to also, like, that's that research and preparation matters, right? Because that hiring manager looks at something different than that senior position in that position versus like the chief operating officer you're going to meet, right? So like you have to do the research and understand it. And that's where you also have to practice the different types of interviews and how you would engage with those types of, I would say, profiles, because there are different profiles. There's C-suite profiles, there's hiring profiles, there's just the regular managers, and then usually they'll have you meet peers too, and how you interview and interact with your peers is going to be a part of it. To what May just said about how you get jobs, it's not by just applying. My first 2 jobs was because of the career services here at St. Thomas. One was Republic National. They got, like, when I graduated, they had the career services, got me in there. The second was I came to a career day just like this in March while I was working at Republic National, met the lady at University of Phoenix that basically was doing a booth, and that's how I ended up working there. After that, all my jobs have been because of people I know, not because I applied to a job. I actually do a pay it forward newsletter where I share 3 to 5 minute micro learnings based on the books that I'm constantly reading and all my experiences, kind of like May saying I want to share and teach people. Quincy got a chance to see a session yesterday that I was doing for the community by TSU about branding and LinkedIn. And again, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you'll see my newsletter subscription list, and you could like basically get knowledge as you learn and want to go in. I share a lot of things that I read in the books because there's so much learning from books that you could apply and accelerate your career. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do is, hey, share all the information that I absorb on all the career and personal development books that I read.